Welcome to another episode of Husky Talk. Today we are excited to welcome Jeff Schultz, the former official photographer for the Iditarod. For decades, Jeff traveled the trail by bush plane and snow machine, capturing some of the most iconic images of the race. While he is no longer on the trail, he continues to tell the story of the race through his Faces of Iditarod project. Please welcome to the show Jeff Schultz. Hello, Jeff. I'm Lakin.
And I'm Marley. Can you start
Hey,
telling?
thanks for having me here.
Can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into photo, photograph? Photography.
Photography. Well, I was born and raised in the Bay Area of California, and my best friend brought a camera to school when I was in seventh grade. And when I looked through it, I thought there's something to this photography thing. So I got hooked on photography at an early age, and I've been doing photography all my life. It's been a real fun deal, and being involved with the Iditarod has been a super big blessing for me.
Can you tell us how you got the opportunity to take pictures for the Iditarod?
I can. So in 1980, I saw a gentleman at a benefit concert, and he got up and he said he was Joe Reddington, the father of the Iditarod. And I never heard of Joe Reddington or the Iditarod, for that matter. But my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, leaned over and she said, "Doesn't he have a kind face?" And I thought, since I'm starting doing portrait photography, that I could contact him and make a picture of this famous Alaskan, and that would help my business. I went out there and photographed Joe Reddington back in 1980, and he was the kind of guy that tried to get everybody involved with the Iditarod. So that's what he did. He said, "Jeff, if you don't want to take a dog team to Nome, why don't you come take pictures for us?" So I donated my time. I've always been a volunteer photographer, donating my time and talent. And then I donated pictures that first year in 1981, and they asked me to come back and be their official photographer. So that's what I did for a long time.
What was your What was your first year like taking pictures for the race?
My first year, I had no clue what was even happening, that what the trail was all about, where the mushers were going. I just had a volunteer pilot, and we took some food with us in our sleeping bags, and we slept out on the trail at different checkpoints or between checkpoints. So it was really weird and crazy. Um, I just didn't have a clue even about photographing dog teams. So to describe it, I guess I would say I was a total rookie, and I just faked it until I made it. Just kept shooting pictures and did the best I could with what I had.
Okay. So back then, taking pictures was a little different than today. Was What was it like using film and not knowing exactly how the pictures would turn out immediately?
Yeah, it was definitely different. Well, back then, you really needed to know what you were doing as a photographer, how to expose the photos properly. Um, so what was different? Plus, you could only take 36 pictures before you had to change film again. And so it was different. I took about 350 rolls of film on the Iditarod with me, and each one of those cost about $15 or $20. So it was very expensive to do it. Um, and there would be times where I'd run out of film or run out of film in the camera. And then I would be switching film and changing it, rewinding it um, while I'm on the snow machine, while someone's driving the snow machine and I'm being pulled by basically, or being pulled in a dog sled behind it. And that was very different. It's kind of hard to describe because it's been too long ago, but it was much, much harder to do.
Talk to us about how you get along. How did you get along the Iditarod trail to take pictures since there are no roads to travel? So you said you went on like the sled.
Yeah. So typically I flew by small airplane, a plane that either seated two people, the pilot and myself, a Super Cub, or a little bit larger plane, which would be the pilot, myself, and maybe one other person, 4-place plane. And I did that for many years. And then once we got to a checkpoint, I would typically either hire or borrow a snow machine and go out on the trails because I didn't want to just sit around the checkpoints and take pictures of people. I went out there and got in the middle of the trail between checkpoints to photograph it. But oftentimes also I would hire somebody to take me by snow machine, like from the Rainy Pass checkpoint to the Roan checkpoint. So 25 miles or so. That's where the snow machine would be hauling me on either a snow machine sled or a dog sled behind it. And that was pretty crazy and wild. There was times where we're going over bumps and I'm bobbing all around, and I sometimes got bucked off of the sled. And then maybe, half mile later, the snow machine driver turns around and says, "Oh, lost Jeff," and turns around and comes to get me. Anyway, it was weird. I got face planted in the snow many times. And then also there's times where I'd be out there by myself on a snow machine and the weather was brutal, blowing 50, 40 miles an hour and sub-zero temperatures. It was stinking cold out there. But that's what it took to get the photos, to really understand what the mushers were going through. I had to be out there too. I couldn't just sit around in a checkpoint and wait for them to come in. So it was pretty exciting stuff. Big adventure every year.
Quick question. Do you sleep along the trail?
Yes. Is that a short enough answer?
Mm-hmm. Where at do you sleep?
So I would sleep typically in a school gymnasium with 50 of my favorite friends, or I'd find a classroom, or sometimes I'd just find a closet. My best places to sleep were in a closet somewhere where there was nobody else who could step on me. And then sometimes I'd sleep outside under the stars or in a wall tent. There were some really cold nights out there. Sometimes I didn't get much sleep at all. Get in my sleeping bag, sometimes with all my clothes on because it's 30 below zero, and I'd be out of my sleeping bag in just a couple hours because I was too cold. Didn't get a lot of sleep during Iditarod.
Did you bring any food or supplies? You said you bring a sleeping bag, but besides that, did you bring anything specific?
Yeah, I brought, of course, sleeping bag, sleeping pad, a lot of extra clothes, which would stay in the airplane. Didn't typically bring much food because Iditarod provided food. So I would have a bologna sandwich for lunch and a couple granola bars in the middle of the day and hopefully something warm for dinner. But brought all the gear I needed to survive.
Since you have been taking pictures for the Iditarod for over 40 years, how do you keep things fresh and unique?
Well, that's real hard to keep things fresh and unique. So the bottom line there for me is in 2019, I just couldn't do it again. I couldn't go out and photograph another dog team because I'd been doing it for over 38 years or something. And so that's when the Faces of Iditarod project was born, because I got a couple friends together and I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't go out and photograph another dog team. So we brainstormed and came up with the idea for Faces of Iditarod. But kind of to really answer your question, if I would get out on the trail between checkpoints where I could get the small dog team and the big landscape, that's what I love doing. I love the outdoors and adventure. So that got me more excited than just sitting around a checkpoint shooting another dog team.
Do you have a favorite spot on the trail you like to take pictures at?
Absolutely. And that would be, there's several of them, but if I had to pick just one, it would probably be the summit of Rainy Pass.
Talk to us about the challenges you encountered while out on the trail.
Well, a lot of it, the main one is cold and then not sleeping a lot, trying to get excited about getting up and putting on all your clothes and going out at 10, 20, 30 below zero, sometimes 60 below, and trying to stay warm and excited. Those were the biggest challenges, keeping warm, and then also getting to those unique locations. I would hear from some pilot that, hey, there's open water about 10 miles out. And I, as a photographer, want to get there to photograph what it's like for a dog team to go through that open water or whatever it is. And then be a challenge for me to get there because I can't just get an airplane or a helicopter because there's nothing around. So I'd get on, try to find someone, knock on doors and say, hey, can you rent me your snow machine? And then I'd go out there and try to photograph it. And then the problem is waiting for a dog team. These teams aren't coming by every couple minutes. Sometimes you can sit out there for hours and wait for a dog team to come by. That takes some patience.
Does the cold affect your camera?
No longer. Back in the film days, yes. But now, as long as I have warm batteries to replace the cold ones, it still works. It does affect it in one way, and that's the little LCD screen. It's very slow and sluggish to change exposures or aperture shutter speeds. But by and large, they work really well. I'm very thankful for that.
You taught me a trick, Jeff. It's Aaron. You told me to take out my batteries and my card, put my camera in a baggie and leave the camera outside. Did you teach me that?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember doing that when I was out there in the cold weather that was 2015, yeah.
Yeah, it's very important not to bring your camera in from being cold into a warm environment where it can condense, and that condensation can get inside the camera and really make for a bad day.
Let's move to the changes you've seen. Since you've been taking pictures for over 40 years, tell us how photography has evolved in that time.
Well, that's a good question. The main thing that's changed, of course, is going from film to digital. But by and large, photography hasn't changed that much, because what it boils down to is good composition. If if you can take a camera and you can compose your subject into a composition that's pleasing to other people and they want to look at your photo, then it's a good picture. So that part hasn't changed at all. That's just art. That's it's the God-given talent that I have that many other people have. It's that art part that satisfies. The only things that have changed are the cameras, but they're basically the same thing. They're a light, tight box, and you put a lens on them, and everything's great. It's only gotten better and better over time.
What about the challenges? Have the challenges become easier or harder since you started?
Much easier. Everything, the equipment's much easier. So yeah, it's a cakewalk now. Anybody can be a photographer with their smartphone, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you think social media has made an impact on your photography?
Yes. Should I elaborate?
In what way?
So it's made it so that people, it's the instant gratification thing. If I take a picture now today, people want to see it 5 seconds later. And that's hard to do as a professional photographer when you're shooting photos with different equipment that require you to process the photo. So social media has made it more urgent to get the photos online, and people want to see it with that instant gratification. And I don't really like that. I'd rather just be out there shooting my pictures and then show it to people whenever I feel like it. So that's put a lot of pressure on photographers.
What about the Iditarod itself? Talk to us about the changes you've seen.
Well, the changes I've seen there are that it's just faster and faster all the time. Back in the day, it used to take 2.5 days just to get from uh, Anchorage or Wasilla to Roan, and then Roan is like the fifth checkpoint in or fourth. And at that point, people would take their 24-hour layover because it was so hard to get across the Alaska range. Nowadays, people aren't taking their 24-hour layover till the 10th or 11th checkpoint halfway through the race. So that's changed a lot, as well as all the gear. The sleds are better. The sled runners are better. They've been breeding dogs better and better. Food is better. So it's just become a faster paced race.
So you don't go out on the trail anymore. What made you decide not to go out anymore, and what do you miss the most?
Well, what I miss the most are the people. the people in the villages are just wonderful. What was the rest of the question?
Okay. What made you decide not to go out anymore?
Just getting burned out. The race has changed enough where it just wasn't as much fun out there anymore. But also, the Faces of Iditarod project to me is more meaningful than photographing the race. So I'll definitely consider going out on the race again, but it wouldn't be to photograph the mushers or the race itself. It'd be to photograph more of the faces, because the Faces project is putting down history. I wish I would have done this project 15, 20, 30 years ago, when I could have encapsulated all of the people from the past and their presence into this website with their the audio of their words and the pictures of them. To me, that means a lot more. That's going to last a lot longer and mean more to more people.
You're still involved in the Iditarod through the Faces of the Iditarod program. Can you talk more about that?
More about the Faces project? Well, the cool thing about the Faces project is that, as I just mentioned, it's going to cement for all time the people and some of the dogs that are out on the trail. And the cool thing about the Faces project is that I not only photograph all the mushers and volunteers and spectators that I can, it's all shot with the exact same background and the exact same lighting. So that puts everybody on an even playing field. And when a person looks at those portraits, it's almost like looking into the soul of that person or dog. At least that's the feedback I get from people. And then when I ask these 4 different questions about why people are involved with the Iditarod, it really, I guess, goes to the heart of the person on what makes them tick. And then the 4th question I ask them is, what in life do you know for sure? Now, that's a pretty tough question. What in life do you know for sure? That really goes to the heart of who the person is and their soul. And it just means a whole lot to me. A number of the people that I've photographed have since passed away since I started this project, and the families come back to me, and they're so thankful that they not only have a nice, simple portrait of their loved one, but they also have their voice recorded, and that just means a lot to people. So, and I give the photos free to the subjects, and so they're free to do whatever they want with them, and so that's a nice way to give back also.
Mhm. Our final segment is your favorites. Ready?
Am I ready? Sure.
Okay. Who was your favorite musher to photograph?
Joe Reddington Sr.
What was your favorite photo of the Iditarod you ever took?
My most favorite photo would be the one that's on the cover of my book, Chasing Dogs. It's an aerial photo looking down at a musher on ice of Farewell Lake. Exactly. That's my all-time favorite photo.
What was your favorite place on the trail to photograph?
That would still be Rainy Pass area, my all-time favorite.
What was your favorite checkpoint to visit?
Takatna.
What was your favorite part of the race to photograph? Start, finish, or out on the trail?
Out on the trail, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
Special thank you to our guest, Jeff Schultz, for being on our show this week. If you have any other questions, comments, or people you would like to hear on the show, email us at huskytalk1@gmail.com. We would like to also give credit to Hobo Jim for our intro song, the Iditarod Trail song, in our
in the land of the midnight sun.
One of my favorite songs.
In the heart, it's ready.